Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I'm immensely appreciative of that. I also love to get comments, so if you have something to say, like you have a suggestion for a video, a question about this one, if you want to tell me how you do things, or just say hi, those things are all great, so leave a comment if you'd like. Lately I've been making really big pieces, and I thought it'd be nice to do something kind of dainty today. So I'm going to do just a little kind of circular pendant. I think it'll be pretty. I'm going to put a little tiny pink tourmaline. I think it's maybe a 3 or 4 millimeter, and at the center point of it, and we'll do some little decorations, and we'll see how it turns out. I think it should be cute, but we'll see and give it a try. Before we do that, I wanted to thank some groups of people. I wanted to thank my patrons over on Patreon. They are my core group of supporters. It's a great group of people who have not only financially helped me out, but they've created this really nice environment where they can share ideas and show each other what they're working on, and it's just a nice place. So thank you for making it that way. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 19,800, I think. That's an amazing amount. I didn't ever think I'd ever see that, but thank you for doing that, and thank you for the nice comments as well. And also the super thanks and the buy me coffees are super helpful with the cost of materials being so high right now, so thanks for that. Alright, well, let's get started on this piece. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks you can get on my merch store. I use them to draw up my designs every time I do a project. And it's super nice because it's got this dot matrix kind of graph paper thing in the background. It's not too obtrusive, but also helps me to get things lined up. And it's nice to have a record of your pieces that you've made, so you can go back and do them again if you want to. This particular one has a useful chart on it. It's a conversion table from fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters. I use that almost every day as well. There's a couple of other ones with different information on them, so check those out, get yourself one. Very handy and a nice way to keep a good record of what you've made. So here's what I had in mind today, and like I said, it's going to be kind of dainty. I'm going to use pretty small wire and make it generally not a huge pendant. I've not made one quite like this, but I think it should be cute. This outer piece, I think I'm going to use some flattened 14 gauge square wire, which started out as 1.6 millimeters. The inside here, and this pillar that the stone is going to sit on, upright, is going to be 16 gauge round wire, which is 1.3 millimeters. And then I'm going to do a little bezel for pink tourmaline I have that's, like I said, I think it's 3. I'll check in a minute how big the stone is. But I'm going to use some 26 gauge fine silver bezel, which is 0.41 millimeters, and I normally use 3/16 inch, which is 4.76 millimeters, but I cut this in half because I know this is a small stone and I'm not going to need all that height. You could also just use pre-made stuff that's shorter if you wanted to. I'm going to add a little step in it by using some 18 gauge round wire and just create a little jump ring that fits in the bottom of that, and we'll solder that in, and then we'll have a platform for the stone to sit in. I'm going to make a sandwich bail. Depending upon how long all this stuff takes, I may do it on camera. If not, I have a video about it right here on how to do all different kinds of bails, sandwich bail included. And well, yeah, let's get started. I think we'll start by making a bezel after I show you the stone here. Where'd my little stone thingy go? Okay, so that'll be right here, and like I said, I made a little bit of bezel up front. You see I cut it in half. It was this wide originally. So let's go ahead and make a bezel for this. I'm going to start by filing the end flat. You could probably do a little tube bail if you have the right size tube. or made some too that size. Let me find a little T-pin to make a scratch. I'm going to cut it just a little bit longer than right where they meet, so that I have a little room to file it flat on the second side that I cut. Alright, so I'm going to set him off to the side while we solder this. I do things a little different than some. I use primarily hard silver sheet solder. I occasionally will use a little bit of paste solder that's easy or medium, but generally just that. And I use a liquid flux that I dribble in with a dropper bottle for the most part. I used to spray it on with a spray bottle, but this gives me just a little more control. I use a Silversmith model. It's an acetylene air torch, so it's not as hot as an oxyacetylene, but it's a little bit hotter than a propane torch. It's kind of perfect for silversmithing, I think. Let's see. I use a #1 tip on that. I get asked that pretty frequently. And I also get asked about these little craft shears. They're Fisker's craft shears. They're pretty easy to find. Alright, so let's make this into a shape that's easier to solder. I usually like to make a little square. Alright, so let's set that up right. I'm going to cut a little bit of solder. Got yacht rock playing in my head today. I'm listening to yacht rock when we were out and about earlier. I would sing it out loud, but you would all immediately unsubscribe from my channel. I think we did alright on the size on that one. So let's add a little 18 gauge wire ring on the inside of that, and we'll see how that sits in there. That's pretty close. I usually suggest to people that bezel setting faceted stones is kind of getting into the intermediate range, but I don't know, the more I think about it, the more I think it's not really too super hard to do. You just have to be able to shape a nice, especially on like little round stones like this, you just have to make a little jump ring that fits right, make sure it's sitting flat. And then we'll just kind of solder it in there as long as we can get it in there. Let's see, that's still slightly too big, so let's snip a little bit out of there. One thing you do want to make sure that it's sitting flat, and you want it flush with the bottom. We'll file the bottom a little bit to get it smoothed out. And I'm gonna use several pieces of this solder so that we get a nice clean join there. Let's try that and see if we got enough. That's probably plenty. Doing step bezels like this, making your own step bezels, you heat when you're soldering that ring on the inside, you heat it the same way you would a regular bezel, which is kind of go around the outside of it. Okay, what did I do with that stone? Okay, good, I put it back in there. Would you like me to knock it off the table or something, and then we'll spend some, 30 minutes crawling around on my hands and knees trying to find it. My polishing machine is set up in my garage, which is currently full of stuff because we're kind of reorganizing, and I lost a hold of something I was polishing the other day. This is when I did the 3 different kind of prong settings recently, and one of them went flying. I could not find it for like half an hour. Okay, so there's the back of that one. Let's put that stone in and see how it looks. That fits in there just lovely, so that'll make for a nice central point on that thing. Alright, so let's set him to the side for now. And I'm going to use this drawing that I made kind of as a size gauge. So this is a piece of that flattened 14 gauge square wire. Let's see how, slightly less than a millimeter, 0.9 millimeters. Okay, so let's file one end flat here. You can use a miter vise jig for this if you have one of those. Those are kind of handy for nice straight ends. And you can also wrap this around something to get a nice circle if you want to. I've just been doing it this way for a long time, so sometimes it's always good to challenge the way you do things, in your own mind, and find out why you do them and whether there's any good reason behind it or not. So probably not on this one for me. It's probably just I like doing it this way. So feel free to do it however you want to get a nice circle. Just using a ring mandrel works fine. Just going to file these ends flat and solder them together. I do something called pick soldering, which is where I use this tungsten soldering pick to pick up a little bit of solder on the end and heat the piece up to the temperature it needs to be for the solder to flow, which in the case of hard silver sheet solder is about 1450 degrees, or 773-ish degrees centigrade. So let's flux this. I'm going to pick up a little bit of solder and do that. If you want to see a video about it, it's one of those skills that really makes things a lot easier, so I would check it out if I were you and you're new. It's worth learning how to do. I mentioned that in a lot of my videos because for me that was one of those things that opened up tons more possibilities as far as what I could do, because it allowed me a more precise way to place my solder in the amount that I wanted to have, so I can do some relatively detailed things now because of that. I'm going to file off a little excess solder that I have on the inside from that. If you leave that there, it'll leave a little bump when you round it out on the outside. And then your circle won't look very circular. And people will compliment you on your egg pendant. And somewhere deep down inside you'll feel shame. Hopefully not. Let's see how close we are to the size that I was shooting for here. Close enough, I think. I'm going to make this part. I was going to use, yeah, originally I was thinking I was going to use the 16 on this for this piece here, but I'm going to use the same stuff that I just used here. But I want to make sure that I'm just going to solder it to one side to start with, because I want to leave it open so I can slide this little bail on at the end and then solder it down on the other side. I think that's what I'll probably do. But if I get this on there, it'll make it easier to get this directly down from it, I think. I guess I could go the other way first, put that in there first. But I think, let's do one thing here just to make sure we get this centered well, because that would be unfortunate if I was trying to make something where the stone was centered in it and it wasn't. It's about 14 millimeters, so let's go about 14 millimeters to the other side. That'll get us to 28-ish, right? That should be close enough. I think this is thin enough to where I don't need... Sometimes when I want a sharp bend, I'll file a little bit of notch on one side of the wire and then bend it that way and then solder it there so it's got a sharper angle. But I don't think we really probably need that on this one. That's kind of what I was thinking. Like that. I may have cut it a little bit longer than I need, probably. But so I think probably that looks pretty close. I'm going to cut them off near there and then file them down. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'm going to kind of file those down into a slope. So these taper down like this. So I want it to just kind of merge with that one nicely. Let's see if I can do that on both sides. If I haven't told you about my ebook lately, my latest one, I've got two now. I did one in 2023 at the end of the year, which features all of the videos I did in 2023. So each page has extra information about one of the tutorials I did that year, and as well as a materials list, a difficulty rating, some notes about things that I made while I was creating the piece, whether it was easy, hard, what things were challenging, whether I would do it again, whether I liked the outcome, those kinds of things, or if I would have done something slightly different, as well as a link right to the video tutorial. So it's $35 for each one, or if you get them both at the same time, it's $5 off. I think it's $65 for the two. And it puts a whole bunch of tutorials right at your fingertips. So, all right, so I'm going to solder this just on one side. Okay. These kind of template sort of things are super useful. I wish I could tell you where to get them, but I don't know. I just had this for a long time, so it's about that one. Alright, so let's do this. This is if you don't have one of those center finders. Those are super useful. I know everybody doesn't have one of those. This will make it easier to find the spot directly below the center there, so I get it, pretty close to where it needs to be lined up. I'm going to make a little mark on that right there, so I know about where to put the central point, which will be down here. So I did a little scavenging on my table, and I found some 16 gauge wire. And I wanted to create this part right here, and so I wanted to have a kind of a split from a single wire, and so I filed this at an angle so that it kind of slopes right into it, and I'm just going to pick solder it together there. The reason I put a bend in this one here is, and this is a little trick you can use if you're trying to solder round wires together, they have a tendency to roll around a little bit, and so if you just put a little angle in it so it can't really roll very well anymore. I could have done the same thing on this one, but it was just bent enough to where it's probably not going to be a big issue. So. I think I'm going to kind of try to straighten this up so it looks like it's coming straight out of the center of both of them instead of having one soldered to the side like that. Okay, so here's a trick you can do too. I need this to match the inner curve of that. And so let's make sure this is, well, I guess it doesn't matter if it's straight up and down here. I just need to color those black like that. So that's pretty close. So what I'd like to do is make a scratch along the inside of that. If I can push this down without moving anything too much. Should be able to make a little scratch along the inside edge there. Then we'll know whereabouts to kind of cut that. First one actually didn't solder. The reason is I'm hitting just the one side. That had moved a little bit, so I pushed it back where it was supposed to go. That looks pretty good. Let's give that a try. Yeah. We'll see how hard it is to make this part now. I don't think it'll be too hard. Okay. So here's that other chunk of 16 gauge. Let's straighten this out. Someone almost always says, you know, you can roll those between two bench blocks. And I would, except for all of my bench blocks are all beat up, and so it just kind of makes the wire look really beat up, so I'm not going to do that. So we need each side to curl around a little bit. Look at my picture that I drew here. So I've been going back and forth in my brain about whether I should just melt the ends of these a little bit, but it's going to be harder to get the exact length if I do that. So I kind of want to just solder a little ball on the end of each one, which I might do. And I don't need a very big loop, so let's try the second biggest one here, or second smallest one. Getting pretty close there. I think I need to snip it down just a tiny bit more. That looks pretty good. I'm going to solder that in like that. Alright, let's make a couple little balls. Well, actually, I made some little balls the other day. I'll find a few here. These are pretty good size. Let's see. I cut these off just a tiny bit. That's pretty nice. I like that. It's pretty good. I want to let that pickle for a bit. And let's make a little sandwich bale that's brown like that. So the last thing I have to do here is I'm just going to pick solder a little bit of solder right there. And in order to do that without soldering this to this, I really want to not heat that part, but only the big part of the pendant here. So I'm going to give that a shot. Okay, it's soldered. I just have to remove that little extra bowl of solder on there. Make sure nothing, yep, that's still moving around. Okay, I think we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and pickle that, I think, and then we'll clean it up and I'll set the stone at the end and we'll get some better pictures. Okay, time to set this stone. So I do this a little differently than some people do. I use the flat side of my chain nose pliers and I just push the bezel in. Once I have this at the correct height. Check periodically to make sure it's sitting flat. Sometimes if you push too hard on one side, it'll kind of tip the stone up like that. So once it's all pushed down, then I'm going to do the burnishing stage, which is using the outer rounded part here. And I'm just going to take that and I'm going to rub that top edge really carefully where the two come together, the stone and the bezel. I'm using quite a bit of force on this. Make sure it lays down nice and tight. Okay. Once I'm done, I usually give it a little poke from behind. Make sure it's in there securely. And then I was going to put this on a little curb chain, I think. So I'm just going to drop that through there. A piece here. So a couple of observations. One thing was this, prior to polishing, I was not able to turn it either way. After polishing, it removed just enough material to where this thing can go like that, which is sort of annoying. So if you are to make one of these, make your little shape a little bit tighter so it doesn't have as much room to move around. I don't think it's going to affect things too much on this one, but it is, you know, not as ideal as if it didn't do that, in my opinion. So, but yeah, I think that came out cute. I'll totally be able to sell that one. So tell me if you like it or not. Tell me what would you have done differently. Any thoughts about this? Any ideas that made you formulate? How would you change the project if you were going to do it? So leave those things in the comments. All right. Well, I will take some pictures and put them at the end of the video. Okay, well that was a dainty circle pendant with a pink tourmaline. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. And one thing I'd love to have you do is, I'd love it if you'd go check out my main channel page. I have, 460 plus videos now. I haven't checked for a couple of days, but I do 3 per week, and I've been doing that for 3 years, and it's added up to quite a bit of content over there. So if you're interested in silversmithing and jewelry making, it might be a great place to subscribe to. I'd love it if you watched a few more videos and saw some of the stuff I have available. But either way, subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. So the other thing is, check out the video description down below. If you're interested in supporting me as an artist, there's a link to my Patreon site. There's multiple tiers of membership over there, each one providing different perks. The first tier being just you get my videos without any YouTube advertising, and the other ones increasingly have different stuff. So check those out. There's a link to my ebook if you want to get yourself a whole bunch of tutorials right at your fingertips with extra information about them. There's a link for that down there. And there's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea books or some other merch. Check it out. They're super handy, and I use mine every day. So, all right, well, thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.